the fact that you were able to, I don't even, how did you meet Helen? How did this come onto your radar?
Man,
You
it's
just find these awesome stories, Corbin. You
dude.
just
Well,
dream about it and it come manifest.
man,
Like,
I mean, I'm very picky, like, because I work freelance and I work, and just a bunch of stuff. And this one, when I take on a passion project, like something like this, like the Hidden Summit documentary, like Disciplined, it's something. It has to have a meaning and something substantial of a message behind it, or else I don't want to do it, or else it doesn't mean anything to me. Because these projects, they're like mainly most of the time self-funded or very, very, very low budget, and so it's like doing that extra work for nothing, for just this message needs to get out there.
welcome to the Hidden Summit podcast. My name is Kevin and I'm your host. I used to be 300 pounds and I used to wear a size 40-inch pants, and somehow, some way, I found it within myself to take one step in a direction of positive growth. And now, looking back 16 years later, I want to bring you the experiences that I've had, the thoughts that I've had, the mistakes that I've made along the way, so you can take action and put yourself in a position to win every single day. We're going to talk about fitness, nutrition, and everything in between. The only thing I'm ever going to ask you to do is subscribe and share this with somebody who you might think would benefit from what we talked about today. Last thing, remember, if you learned one thing on today's episode, take that and apply it today, because that's how we become better and see progress over time. All right. Man, it's been a minute since I've done one of these, but I'm pumped to be back and glad to have a good friend of mine. How long have we been friends now? This is going back like 2020, 2020.
Yeah,
2020.
I think end of 2020, because Eric actually, he's the one who introduced me to you.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's just been, time flies. I mean, we're in the middle of 2024 right now, but there's not many people I can say I have kept in my life since that time period. So, Corban, I'm glad you're here. Corban Aspegren. We are back on the Hidden Summit podcast, and this is a cool episode for me because I don't know if you knew this, but I recorded an episode every weekday for the first 3 months of this year.
Yeah.
Whether it be guests or just me talking in the office. And then I took a 3-month hiatus. So I was like, this is really working and everything's going in the right direction. And things happen and life happens and the business needed attention in other ways and changes need to be made. And we'll get into some of that. But we're kicking it back off to start the second half of the year. And no better person to do it with than you, my friend.
Dude, I appreciate it. I can't believe it's already like the year's almost over already.
Yeah, well, it's always almost ending, right? If we look at it that way.
Always. We're on the way to the end and then just not the beginning, and it just starts right back.
Absolutely. So, dude, what's been going on? Where are you living these days? You travel so much more than me, I think.
Yeah, man. I'm currently based out of Dallas, Texas right now still. And have been here since I think 2021. But I've lived, I think, all over the country in the past since 2011. I feel like I realized this year that I have moved every year since 2011, whether it's within city or outside of a state.
Well,
so
do you have a favorite place that you would go back to in a heartbeat?
Man, so far it's been Texas. You can't beat
Texas.
Okay.
All right. Well,
there's a reason why we're proud over here.
I get it. Any place you wouldn't go back to?
That's tough. I mean, I lived in Missouri for 3 years. The joke is, people call it misery.
Yeah. Well, my friend, our friend Sharka.
Yes.
Right. And her accent, she was just like, we're going to misery. And I was just like, it's Missouri.
Missouri, not misery. But yeah, it was a great state to live in, but it just wasn't, I think it wasn't my vibe. And I mean, I liked Orlando too, but I think that got just not really, I feel like Texas has been the perfect balance of like, especially for creativity and work. Because I'm in the middle of the country, and so I can get anywhere very quick, as you know. So
absolutely. And then, well, you're in Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, well, we can bond over both of our hockey teams losing shortly, but
yeah, that's awful.
I was pulling for you guys.
I was wanting a Rangers and Stars meetup, and
I know it would have been great.
Now I just haven't even.
It probably would have been cheaper for me to fly to you to see a game than to go to New York.
Actually go to the Garden to see it.
Yeah, but what I was leaning into is like you say creative, right? And I don't. I
Hmm.
mean, I think creative into Texas. I think Austin, right? So like
Yep.
living in Dallas, it's a little bit more. I guess it would be a little bit higher speed, higher pace of life, right, than
Yep.
Austin, and a little bit more corporate in that sense
I think
versus
so.
artistic. But talk to me about
Yeah, Dallas, is broken up in, people call it DFW. And so there's Dallas, Fort Worth. And everyone who's not from Texas thinks, Fort Worth is right next to Dallas, but they're actually like 45 minutes apart.
Mhm.
But what's great about the DFW area, I think, in terms of a creative, is there is so much to do here. You've got artists coming from all over the country to shoot here. They go to Austin first, but I think Dallas has really blown up in the creative space as just an all in one shop destination to shoot content. We've got tons of studios. We've got lots of productions happening. We are a huge corporate and commercial type of city. But there's been a lot of TV shows that have filmed here. Bass Reeves was the most recent one that, took over Fort Worth, and, a lot of spinoffs of Yellowstone. But I've found that, like, what's great about Dallas and the film scene and the creative scene here is everyone is pulling for everyone, and everyone wants to see everyone succeed.
I love
And
that.
I think that's huge. And I think that's something that we're missing out as a creative collective as a whole, I think, because everyone's trying to, put out as much content as possible, to try to keep up with the 2 second, brain attention span on, the social media channels. And we're not, and trying to beat each other out. And, you're trying to make content, but we're forgetting what, it actually means to be creative. And it's creating something special for people to enjoy, for people to sit in and, just have an escape from. And I feel like that's something that's gotten lost. And but that's so all that to say is, like, I feel like Dallas has been like one of those very supportive communities. Is everyone wants everyone to succeed. If someone can't do a job, they'll say, "Hey, I know my buddy over here can do it." And that's really how I get a lot of my work, is just through word of mouth.
All right, amazing.
Long-winded answer.
No, I love it. No, and I mean, as you know, like I've been getting behind the camera a little bit more than in
Mhm.
front of it, and it's just man, there's so much to learn,
Yeah.
and with the amount of content that is demanded of us content creators, it's challenging, right? It brings
Hmm.
it, and what I'm hearing is that the environment that you're in is more of a supportive environment to create quality content and
Hmm.
have the people around you that want you to bring out the best in the content that you create versus becoming a machine to punch 15-second videos out
Yeah.
every single day. So, and that's a conversation you and I have had before too, where I
Yeah.
mean, like, cinema is your jam, right? Like
Hmm. Absolutely.
horizontal is your jam.
Yeah, when I see the vertical and I go to, yeah, I see the need and I see the necessity for social media and all of it. But man, I love it when it goes horizontal. There's
No,
just something different. It's
oh
just
yeah.
an element, it's just makes people have to pay attention, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think with, what we did early on, like when
Mm.
we were in New York and I invited you out and I was like, "Hey, you want to do this, like follow us around for a weekend and kind of like put something together?" I don't even think I had like the perfect plan. I was like, "I don't know if I want to document this
Man,
as a movie or what," but it was the
yeah.
coolest thing at the time to see you work, and
Mm.
then what came of it, like I would have never imagined. I know you did, because you
I
said it.
yeah, I saw it. I saw it. Like, I remember because that was the first time meeting you, right?
Mhm.
Was, Eric's like, hey, Kevin, he's got some stuff he needs filmed in New York for like Hidden Summit and stuff like that, kind of telling me about it. Like, oh, that sounds cool. So I think your plan was just for me to come out, shoot a bunch of workout stuff and a bunch of content, for Hidden Summit that I don't think you guys had really pumped up yet. And then when I was there, and I think I've told you this, was just like I started to see a story, especially when I heard your story, like in person, about like 2020 and, what you wanted to do in the online fitness space. And you saw an opportunity, you and your brother. I was like, man, this needs to be a story. And so I literally just kept the camera rolling all weekend and just grabbed everything I could. And then I think just went back and just spent all this time. And then I said, hey, Kevin, I got this thing for you.
Yeah. Oh man, it was. 9 minutes I can sit down and watch it anytime. And like we say attention span, right? And then we look
Mhm,
at, all of the work that you put into that, and,
mhm,
what happened, like you said, nonstop, right? For, 36 hours filming. And what I love about you is the ability for you to see the story in the
mhm,
happenings of life, right? And I think that the more, like, I was reading something in this book, Building a Short Storied Brand, and the truth is, like, people cannot pay attention. But for whatever reason, when people go to the cinema or the movies and they sit down for 3 hours to watch Oppenheimer, they're locked in and they're not paying
mhm,
attention to anything else. Why? Because it's a story.
mhm,
And, the gift that you have to pull a story out of what we're doing, like, we see it as, yes, this is a story. This is what happened to me. And this is what we're
mhm.
doing right now to
Yeah.
get to where we want to go. The ability for you to tell that story through your eyes and what you saw that weekend. I mean, it's something that I'll never let go of, and it's our
Mhm.
most watched YouTube video of all time. It sits there with
I
like
love it.
30,000 views, so it's great. Like, I don't. So this is huge for me.
I
Um,
love that, man.
and then the coolest part about it after the fact was you called me up almost 2 years later, and you're like, "Hey, man, remember that that little short film we made? I got guess what?" So, I mean, what talk me through, like, what happened when you heard about this. I want you to explain it.
Man, so I remember, well, first of all, and I remember telling you this when I was there, filming, what was it, 2021 or something like that.
Yep.
And I had been wanting to get into the online fitness space. And because I had just started CrossFit in like 2018, I think, like that, and I loved it. I'm like, man, there are so many cool stories around here. And then your guys's was the first one. I felt like, man, I this is the first story I can see like actually being a full story that we have, like, act one, act two, act three, that we can go all the way through. And I remember after filming, I said, Kevin, this is gonna go in the Noble Film Festival. I'm gonna make sure this gets in a film festival, especially the Noble one. Yeah, it's gonna be there. And you're like, okay, okay, Corbin.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
You're like, cool, cool. And then yeah, finally, but I think they went on a hiatus for a year or something like that. And then
Hmm.
they came back because they were supposed to be in Austin, but then that got canceled. And then they, had another one coming in Boston. So immediately, got it in. And then I remember the day I got the email, man, I was over the moon. It was like one of those goals, um, just in my career, to just like, just to get a project of mine that I, loved and wanted people to see just out into like an actual audience. There's one thing of living, on the internet and having people see it. It's awesome. But it's another to like have people, peers of you and your colleagues, and people who you don't even know, and people that, respect the same space and want to see something new, get to sit down and see, especially, you know, um, being picked for that festival was huge because I remember sitting there and I was telling you, and this was one thing that I noticed was like, out of, I think they had like close to 300 films or something submitted to their festival. And for us to be picked for, 6 to be played, and then every other film had, I think, crews of 10 plus people, 10 to 30 people on it. We were alongside films like Yeti, NFL films, stuff like that. And then there's ours.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and at the credit says Corban Aspegren and Woodlock Studios and stuff
Right.
like that. That's my audio engineer in Ireland. But like, just to see that was just like a moment. I was just, and so just thank you for that, for opening, your story and everything. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
that's
mean,
just huge.
happy to, have the idea and, talk about it at the end of the day. But dude, like, your ability to bring it to life is something that resonates with people still today.
Appreciate that,
I get
man.
messages about it, and, I'm forever thankful for your ability to, see the story, tell the
Mm,
story. I know the hours and hours after putting that together, as a company of one,
mm.
does not go unnoticed. And it was a special moment to be there with you in
Yeah, I love
Boston,
that.
with Derek and you, to celebrate and watch. And yeah, it's wild when you think about it. But
But
go for it.
yeah, sorry. I think that's something that you said is like, that's people are still, watching that and resonating with it. And I think that's important. Again, it goes back to, what are we missing when we create just short form online content? We're missing that ability to tap into people and, connect with them in some way, because you get that connection time online for like, 10 seconds or less or whatever it is. But you're saying like when we create art like that and create something that can be sustainable, whether it's a creative video, whether it's your workout programs, whether it's your nutrition programs, I think it's just an art form, shows up in different ways, but the ability to tap in and resonate with people, that's the biggest thing that I think we miss out on a lot. And when people can do that, when like you can do that with your clients, it's huge.
Absolutely,
Huge.
man. And it's something that it sits there at the staple of
Hmm.
who we are, right? Like
Mhm.
never gonna forget how we began, and things change,
Yeah.
right? Things have changed for you since then.
Yeah.
Things have changed for me since then, personally, professionally.
Mhm.
However, the idea is like that mission, that root, right? Whether it be like our end, fulfilling the client's needs and assisting them on their journey, or your roots and telling these stories and bringing that connection to people, right? No matter with me or other people that you've worked with,
Mm.
it's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And that means so much, for us as creators and visionaries, and then for the clients that will see it, and the people who will watch the other films that you make and have made, because that's what I really want to talk about today, is leaning into that film that I'm not going to spoil anything, but all I'll say is, man, you had me like eyes were tearing up like 5 minutes into the fucking movie.
I love that, dude.
I was like, oh, you got me. You got me.
Dude, I love it so much.
It's just something like, and you know me, it's like that topic, and I'll let you talk as much on it as you want, but I'll reflect on what I saw, but like it's a home run, like through and
Thanks,
through,
dude.
like the ability to talk about the children and where they're at, and the coach of that gym. And I've shit on CrossFit gyms.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love CrossFit gyms.
Yep.
But you and I have both been to a gym where we're like, why did I pay for this?
Exactly.
Like, I wasn't coached at all today. Like you were just walking around, sipping up a cup of coffee, like changing the music in the middle of a workout. Like there is no standard in the CrossFit gym world space. And I've been on both ends of it. And how you found her and got teamed up with that and found this story. Oh man, like it's gonna take off. Like I really believe that their dreams of doing this nationally, it's going to happen. So I mean, it hasn't come out yet, technically.
No,
right?
No,
so like, I don't know what
you were one of the first to get a link, because I remember, because we were talking about it, and I was like, because we connected on something else, and I was like, bro, I've got this new thing coming out. I've been working on it since like last August. And so since conception, I think it's taken about 9 months, and we are finally, we did our first showing of it. So first of all, talking about this new film that I directed called Core City. Basically, it is about a coach named Helen Taylor, who created a nonprofit after-school fitness program for students, saw a need in her community, and was like, one of the biggest things is, CrossFit as a sport can be expensive, and it can definitely price out a lot of people, especially lower income communities. And so she saw that need, and she's like, why is this space kind of, not accessible to different communities like that? And the gym's right across the street from an elementary school. And so basically her story was trying to get kids. She couldn't get any kids in. And then, a couple months later, after having some help from some teachers and some other people in the community, she was able to, she has a waiting group of kids now. She's about 35, and they're overflowing at the gym. It's an everyday after school program. And one thing that the documentary talks about is just, some of these kids, when they go to school, when they have something like that, it's the most just stable thing in their life that they can know, because they know when lunches, one of the teachers talks about it, they know when lunches, they know when, what happens when recess is, they know when gym is, they know when all that stuff, because then sometimes when they go home, they have no idea what's in store for them. And that's tough. And so the story goes into just about this community of people, including a police officer who grew up, um, man, that his story is just something else. I don't want to spoil it or anything, but he grew up in a rough time. But he's a police officer, and just through after school programs like this, got his life on track, stayed off the streets, and was able to, become a police officer. And he's a black police officer. And, first time he's a fitness enthusiast. He drove past the gym, saw kids carrying weights over their heads outside. He was like wondering, never really did CrossFit, walked in and asked, what was going on. And Helen invited him to a class, and the kids didn't want to talk to him because he was a police officer. And so, the fact of that, he's like, this is where I need to be. This is exactly where I need to be. And so he works out with them every day now in full uniform. And now the Detroit Police Department is highly involved and takes them to Lions games, to Detroit Tigers games. They do rowing stuff with them if you go look at their Instagram. So it's just awesome to see, like, when a community comes together, you can mend, broken relationships in a community with just those questions and just coming around. And also just changing, mindsets of the next generation, because, it's hard to see what the next generation holds,
Well,
with
there's so much. There's so much there. That's where my head went. Right, the system is messed up, from the education system to the police department. The powers that be have lived, and what the one quote that one of the gentlemen educators said, whose child is involved in the program, I believe, said that we have a generation of like trauma-filled adults raising trauma-filled children, and the like what we've learned is giving the power to what our parents had given the power to, or the system had given the power to. And this one woman questioned it and pushed it, and the fact that, like, it was not even denied, but not even like looked at in the beginning, like, it didn't stop her, right? Like, in every way, shape, or form, like, everybody in that scenario was served a shit sandwich for a long time, but they didn't give in to saying, like, this is all it's made out to be. And I believe in my heart that the world needs to hear this, because it can parallel different circumstances in different environments, whether it be low income cities or neighborhoods, or systems at work or school, or in law enforcement. There's so much good out in the world, and the fact that you were able to, I don't even, how did you meet Helen? How did this come onto your radar?
Man,
you just find these awesome stories, Corban,
dude,
you just dream about it and it come manifest.
Man, I mean, I'm very picky, like, because I work freelance, and I work, and just a bunch of stuff. And this one, when I take on a passion project, like something like this, like the Hidden Summit documentary, like Disciplined, it's something. It has to have a meaning and something substantial of a message behind it, or else I don't want to do it, or else it doesn't mean anything to me. Because these projects, they're like mainly, most of the time, self-funded or very, very, very low budget. And so it's like doing that extra work for nothing, for just this message needs to get out there, right? And so this story was brought to me by a one of my CrossFit coaches. She follows on Instagram and everything. She's like, have you seen, because I told her, I'm like, oh, man, I want to do another film, I want to do something else, but I just don't know what. And she's like, have you heard of this, like, story? Like, she's pulled up their Instagram page and everything, and Helen posts all the time, constantly posting of her kids. And she's gotten looks by Reebok, by, Victory Grips, RX, Smart Gear. They send her now all this stuff now, just for the kids. But it's because she constantly bombards, again, well, this is where social media can be good. It's like constantly bombards social media with just like what these kids are doing and what they're able to do. I'm like, that is awesome. And so we reached out to her, and I mean, she even told me that she's like, the first time we reached out to me, I laughed and I said, no. Like, and all of her friends or family was saying, no, why would you do a documentary? There's no reason. They don't know what your story is. They don't know what anything is. Like, don't do it. And she was just thinking we were like making a joke. And I said, and it took multiple calls like to talk through different things, and showed her previous work and stuff like that I'm serious about it. And I think especially with this, some very tough subjects in it, and it's like, how do you approach it respectfully to the people you're putting in the documentary? Because I feel like sometimes documentaries just put people in for shock factor and as kind of like an exhibit to look at, instead of as human beings and it's their story. Because I mean, they're being vulnerable, even though they sign forms, basically sign their lives away where we can do whatever we want with the audio or what they say. I think it's just, you got to respect the person. And so that's just how I found that story. And man, I appreciate you like saying those things about it, because that means a lot. Like, because it's I don't know, I think it's a message that needs to go out there, because it doesn't really have a lot of conflict in it, but it's just an uplifting message that I think our society needs to hear, and like what our communities can do if we actually tried.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say it like this. So if whoever is listening to this happens to watch this film, which I all encourage you to do very much so, so you see exactly what it is that we are discussing. Lacey and I sat down to watch this, and I didn't click the link. I didn't know if it was like a one-time link only or whatever. I didn't want to like ruin it. So I clicked it and I was like, oh, it's an hour, just
Yeah.
under an hour. And we didn't really have the hour. We were just
Yeah.
like, okay, and then I was like, we didn't get up off the couch. We were just dialed into it. Like we had something to do and like said, nope, fuck it. We're not doing that later. We're doing watch this now, because we're locked in on this. So it is, the way you deliver, and it is very much so in your style, which I appreciate very much. It was just amazing to see the story unfold and the character development, and like there's hope right at the end of it all with these students, right? The fact that I'm friends with Chandler, and seeing him and speak to the kids, and like I call
so
it like
excited.
hero syndrome in
Yeah,
the sense,
and he,
but
Chandler,
like,
he was like, I don't get it.
right? Yeah. So
and I'm like, dude, these kids are so excited, like when they saw that video from them.
oh, I'm sure, and it's like they're amazing people. Jesse and Chandler are two of my favorites.
Gosh, love meeting them.
Yeah, so it's just the fact that they have people to look up to, and they're getting involved, and they're seeing the development of the sport. It gives hope, right? Because all of these things are happening in real time, and it's something like I posted on Instagram the other day. It's like, yeah, it doesn't seem like much is changing until it changes, and then it's changed. But we have to be the change to make the change happen, even though we don't see it every day. But it's incredible to see that come to life, and I'm excited. What is the plan for where are you going to release it, and when is that going to take place? Do you have a timeline?
It's a good question. So basically, we are getting it out to a few people. First of all, we're just trying to create word of mouth. We had our first public screening actually this past weekend in Detroit with the kids. I thought it was super important that the first people to ever see it publicly was the people that it was about, and basically, get their thoughts on it. Like, I was like, because I was super nervous, like, because again, you're putting these people, they are putting themselves out in the world in a documentary, and that was the first time Officer Harris ever told his story to anyone. He had never told his story, except for a few friends and family knew exactly how he grew up and what he went through. And man, when he told me, because I sat down for an interview with him, and we did the interview, generic questions and everything. I could tell he was just, I was not getting what I wasn't having a conversation with him. It was answering questions as a police officer. And then after we were done with the interview, like, just conversation. And later that day, he's like, hey, he's like, actually, do you want to hear my story? And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, do you want to do a ride along and we can like talk about it? And I'm like, sure, let's do that. And so the next day, me and another camera guy got in his police vehicle and we just drove around his home neighborhood that he grew up in. And he just talked and talked for about 2 hours. And to hear that story all come out, man, I think that like huge. And especially to see like that is what the kids get to see every day. That kind of man and that kind of person who's been there in their shoes. incredible. But so all that to say, I know I get off track. So we showed it. So we showed it to Detroit, and thankfully, like, they loved it and loved how we approached it and approached the story. They thought it was very respectfully done, and they want it out in the world. That's just all I could hear. They're like, when is this going? When is this going? So finally, a breath of fresh air for me. It's like, okay, yeah, it's time to get it out there. So I think what's next is this summer, we're doing a Dallas screening, Dallas premiere. Man, we would love to get some brand behind it, because I think the biggest thing we want is to make the biggest splash possible with it when we release it publicly. We're going to do some festivals this summer, some different screenings this summer. Hopefully, we're talking with the games, hopefully in conjunction during that week, because I think that would be huge to have an event like that, just in conjunction, because it's in their space. I think that would be huge. But in the fall, we would love to partner with some sort of brand to create just a big splash to release it publicly and reach as many people as possible. Because what we want we're not trying to make anything from this. We're basically just trying to create awareness with it and just showing, like, this is what we can do as a society if we try together. And so that's what we're trying to do, is like, how do we release it publicly in the fall with just the biggest audience possible online?
Incredible.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Love
We don't know we don't know what that looks like yet. We're in talks with some different things. But if anyone's out there, would love to hear from you.
I have some ideas. I won't say them on here just in
Yeah.
case they fall through, but I know my brain's already going. I have a couple of things in mind that will
Yeah.
work out nicely if they.
We would love to partner with just as many people as possible, because I mean, like you said, I think we kept it at a good enough length where I think people can find it and watch it, where it's not taking up too much time, but I think it's the right amount of time to really highlight the stories of, like, what these kids mean and what it means as a society to, like, just look at these kind of aspects and things that are actually going on, that we're overlooking, I think. So
Absolutely. And the ability for communities to come together at the end of the day. Like you said earlier on, I mean, it's like you do this on purpose, right? Like, you're in you live in Dallas because the community supports one another, and look how happy you are with doing so. Like, what can't we do that in more places with more people who actually needed the support? That is important.
Well, yeah, and I think we're in a year where, and just it seems to get worse. I mean, people are getting more and more divided every single freaking day. And then how does that look to our younger generation, right?
Right.
It's like, if you don't think like me, if you don't look like me, if you don't do like what I do, then, like, you're not a part of me, right? And I think that's just totally missing the point of just, like, what we're here to do. It's just make our communities better. That's how you're not going to make it better by trying to change people's minds. It's working together and just helping the next generation. I think that's the biggest issue right now that we're missing.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing more about all of the launch and spreading the word on all of this. What else you got going on? I mean, other than just, I know this is a part of what you're doing, and like you said earlier, this is a passion project. So, like, what are you working on now? Otherwise, what you got going on this summer?
This summer is finally, last summer, as you know, I was gone every day. I was only home for, like, not more than 2 days last summer.
Right.
From, like, I think it was, like, from, like, March until August, I was not home. So this summer, I'm actually kind of home. And so I've got a few trips planned here and there, for work. I just got done shooting in Maui for 2 weeks.
Cool.
So that was fun, but, just taking on different freelance stuff. I also work full time as a film producer for a company right now, but it's nice because they let me freelance, and I can, pick and choose my freelance projects and enjoy it. I don't have to, like, wait for that next one. So staying busy, but, always willing to work with people. So
love it, dude. Well, if you ever want to come back down to Florida and hang out, you don't have to bring the camera.
Yes.
I mean, I know you want to, but you don't have to. Yeah, no, you always have an invite here, dude. At the end of the day, I know you like getting some sun and getting out here. So yeah, I love it. It's awesome. We've got a couple of things happening. Like I was saying earlier, we changed some things. Went back to basics. I was thinking about the early days and why we did what we did, and how we're going back to programming as our roots, and giving the power to the person involved. We are no longer babysitting clients. We are
Yeah.
giving guidance and holding them to the standard of what it is that we need them to do. And then we're going to, as the world has changed since that time when the world shut down, I don't want people trapped on Zoom screens anymore. I want to bring them into the room. So we're working on a couple different projects, mainly what was last year the Hidden Summit Retreat and Conference, and will be next month the Hidden Summit Retreat and Conference.
That's exciting.
We'll shift over to what's called Base Camp. So we're going to be running these training camps, like 2-3 day like intensives with the team and I, and coming in, eating together, like living in an Airbnb together, training together, contrast therapy, meditation, yoga.
Would you guys go to different locations for that?
The idea is, we'll eventually. It's hard to not do it here because I have access to the gyms and the contrasting therapy places, and it's Naples, so it's 85 and minus hurricane season. It's a great place to be. But I can totally see us going to Colorado or Texas or up in New York even. Like, we have connections all over. But the idea is, like, we'll roll it out here for a couple of quarters and then get involved. So what did I say in the end of our film that we made? Like, I'm not going to open a gym like as my and now it's like I have these opportunities where people want me to buy their gym, and I'm like, I don't need to do it today. But I want to be in the room with people and go to you. So like that tour model of being around and bringing people together is actually coming to life, which is, to me, speaking to you about it right now, and that's why I bring it up, is incredible. Like that manifestation, and where I find, and and I'm going to bring this up because I care about you, is like, there was a time, I think it was like a year ago, when you were traveling so much and you were burnt out, and you were saying, like, it was almost like questioning why you're doing what you're doing. At least that's how I heard it. And the fact is that people like us might say that because we're human, but all I see in you and I are like, we have the fight to make this work. And even though, like, that was a thought that I had back in 2020, 2021, now it's only 2024, but it feels like forever until we get here and you're like, oh, it's actually happening now. Let's keep pushing and keep growing and doing it the right way, in this low and slow kind of slow cooker type of way. Like, I don't need to sprint anywhere anymore. Like, if I've learned anything over the last 4 years, is I can take my time with this and just be totally okay and grow slow. And that's what I want. I want to bring people in the room together. So I look forward to having you at one or multiple of those, to participate.
Anytime. I mean, I would love to, and that's talking about bringing community together. You're bringing it to people, right? That is huge. And again, I think it's important because too many people are stuck on their screens, and as much as, like, screens are what gets me my paychecks, so I can't say screens are bad, but it's how do we bring communities together in, like, different creative ways? And so I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So dude, I know people don't like listening to long podcasts, so we'll have to do another one when we launch everything. But where can people follow you, find out about you, find out more about the film? What can you share today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously my Instagram is at Corban Aspegren, Corban Aspegren. If you go to Kevin or Hidden Summit, I'm sure you can find my
I'll also type it out, and I'll type it out below so you can figure it out.
And then also, if you want to follow along on the film and our journey of our release, at Core City Film, CoreCityFilm.
Got it.
Sorry, letters are hard. And so that's really where we're going to be posting all our updates and everything. I think our next screening is going to be in Dallas at the end of July, early August is what it's looking like. And then hopefully another one in Fort Worth directly after that. And then a public release online in the fall is what it's looking like.
Amazing. Yeah. And if anybody knows anybody that may want to get behind this and share it, please reach out to Corban directly. I mean, it's just an easy person to work with, talk to, and when you're able to, I mean, even if you haven't seen this film yet, if there's any speed of trust between you and I, it's worth getting behind. I already have some ideas brewing, so let's do this together. Many hands make light work, and this is something that needs to be heard, so we can begin to take action on it. I truly believe that. So
thanks,
Corban, congrats on the film. I'm excited for what you've got going on the next couple of months. It's going to be really exciting to follow along, and let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Anytime, buddy.